Hello and welcome back to another quick review video here for myself with regards to a game that I previously actually reviewed that was called Expeditions Mudrunner, although during the video I think I called it Mudrunner Expeditions. I think the name is interchangeable regardless, it's still the same Mudrunner type experience. But of recent they have made a big update that added co-op to the game, and if you've been a long-term fan of this series of driving games, you're already aware that co-op has kind of been there since the start. Obviously, the original Mudrunner series, there was co-op there, and SnowRunner really sort of ramped that up with huge maps of 4 players driving around. But the sad thing with Expeditions when it first launched was it didn't have any cooperative play. And I actually think that was probably a good idea. The problem is, other games like SnowRunner and Mudrunner had a kind of objective-based gameplay in the way that there was always multiple kind of tasks to be getting on with, and it's not that Expeditions doesn't, it's just SnowRunner, for instance. Any map you go onto, you have missions that usually require you to bring resources, sometimes from different parts of the map, to another location or another map entirely to complete the objectives. So you will, as a group, work out, okay, I'm going to get the timber from this location, I'll take this truck, okay, such and such, you're going to grab these materials from here, we'll take these routes, we'll meet up, and then we'll go back. It's kind of fit around that style of play, and it works, and it's rewarding. It can be a bit frustrating at times getting a vehicle around, but when you do it, it's good. Now, Expeditions has a similar kind of setup in that you have big maps and they've got lots of hazardous terrain for you to try and navigate in your vehicles, but none of the gameplay is centered around taking cargo, or at least not in the early stages of the game, from what me and some friends experienced. In fact, unfortunately, what we experienced is that in Expeditions there is a setup where the game is good as a single player thing because you can play it in short jaunts. The whole idea is supposed to be is that you load up with one objective in mind, and when you complete it, the game ends, and then you pick the next mission, and then it loads in. And you can unlock different bases to spawn from at the beginning of these missions, and you can upgrade those bases with the cash that you make to add more facilities and stuff like that. In co-op, though, you bring... the host brings 4 vehicles, and then the other players that connect can bring a single vehicle. And then you're supposed to be able to swap around between all these vehicles as you're going. The problem is that unlike, again, like SnowRunner, which had fairly generous amounts of things like fuel and the ability to bring support sort of chassis on the back of trucks that would help you in that, the game unfortunately has a staggeringly quick fuel drain system, which in co-op just becomes a nightmare. It's a drag. There's a case of like you play follow the leader, you're driving around the map, you're just trying to get from point A to point B to point C, and a lot of the time that's it. You're just going to a location and you're just driving into a circle, and then it tells you, okay, go over there. Again, as a solo experience where you sit there and you plan it out and you go like, okay, I'll use these vehicles for this and load up these different modules and stuff, that's fine, and the game works well. As a co-op thing, there just doesn't really feel like there's as much to do. Compared to SnowRunner, for instance, it just doesn't feel as complete a co-op experience. If you take the very first mission in the Arizona desert, which just tells you to take scout vehicles, and you drive up a hill, and you drive down the hill, then you go up another hill, and then you finally drive all the way up to another hill. That's it. There's not much to it. And other missions are largely the same. It's like, need to build a bridge? Okay, you just bring supplies. But supplies aren't... In SnowRunner, building the bridge would have been, okay, we need two timber, some metal beams, and you get to the location, you deliver the goods, and you see the thing build. Expeditions, you just build like a little tiny bridge that is made of supplies. And that's it. And so there's no sense of completion. I think that's the problem. It just doesn't really have that same fun factor in cooperative, is basically what I'm getting at. The game looks really nice and it runs well. And obviously, if you do want a challenge, obviously Expeditions is definitely that. I mean, if you want a game where you have to more carefully manage your fuel use, constantly kind of trying to find the most efficient route, and pre-planning a lot more, and being able to stay on comms with other people, updating with your fuel usage and all that kind of stuff, and getting supplies constantly pumped into the vehicles. Yeah, that's what you're going to have to do. Damage is... I don't know if they've changed this since when I last reviewed it, but damage is crazy now. But every single bump or ridge or anything like that, it just... Your vehicle is almost constantly taking little bits of damage here and there. And I know that was always kind of been a feature, especially in SnowRunner, where you would take those kind of bumps, but it wasn't as common as it is here in Expeditions. It just kind of feels like some of the setup is always built around the idea of you're constantly being damaged, so you always have to have spare parts on hand. You're constantly on the verge of running out of fuel, so you've always got to be running around trying to find either an airdrop in the hopes of grabbing some of the fuel out of that, or somebody has got to be driving around with a fuel hub on the back of their vehicle. And the problem is I think one of those is an unlock that you have to find in the map to add it to some vehicles. So it's a bit weird. Also, bases still confuse me. There's still basic elements in the early game, and naturally you're probably going to play co-op as either a fresh save, or if you go into it as a group of friends, or just with one friend, and you go into it completely fresh, you are going to be going to the base and going, how do I refill this with fuel? How do I refill the spare parts in the base? How do I get any of this stuff back in? Because at the beginning of Expeditions, there's so much fuel, there's so many supplies, and it doesn't seem to be a way for you to sort of iteratively add more to the base like that to have it regen. It would be nice if the base slowly regenerated fuel and spare parts, so if you need to either teleport back there or drive back, you can refill and restock on those things and head back out again. But for some reason that isn't the case. I don't know why they've done it that way. Obviously, having certain specialists help. That's one of the features of Expeditions, is finding the special or unlocking those specialists and ones that will help with things like fuel conservation and making things a bit more efficient in that regard. But it's still stuff where in the early game it's a real slog. It makes it very difficult. I think in Cooperative it will turn a few people off, especially people who might have played a lot of SnowRunner more recently and seen that SnowRunner, I think, has been better handled as a cooperative experience. Especially like punishing elements. Like, I know you can in SnowRunner have certain difficulty modifiers for things like returning to the hub or to the garage, but in Expeditions your first return is free and all the others after that is costing you, and it's money drain is always a thing you've got to be aware of. And like you've got to spend money before you even start an expedition on adding equipment to the vehicles on top of other bits and pieces, and then you've got the fact that you may end up spending thousands just to get a vehicle back because it tipped over and another player can't get to you, or you just end up in a position where, hey, I ran out of fuel in the middle of nowhere, another player can't get up to me to put some fuel in the vehicle, and that's it, I have to return. And there's no... It takes the fun out of it, unfortunately, which is the sad part. And yeah, it's just... I think overall, as just a short review of the cooperative experience, it just isn't as refined. I think they could probably patch and tweak and adjust with Expeditions and probably make the co-op a bit more fun. Maybe even make some aspects a bit easier in cooperative play, just to encourage more people just to go out and drive around and explore stuff in their friend's game, because it still works on the same system that only the host makes the progress, and only sort of upgrades and money that's earned is the only thing that carries over to the other players. So, you know, if you help your friend in a game, you aren't making any progress on your save. So, you know, naturally you'll have them join your game and you'll do those missions as well. So, you made it a bit more lenient in some regards. You probably get more people coming in and playing it. But yeah, I mean, other than that, it's still a good game. It's not bad. It runs well. Performance is great. It still looks very nice. Obviously, there's some nice driving physics and other bits and pieces like that. Obviously, in there, which is what you expect from the series. That's all present and accounted for. It's just it feels like with the fuel drain and the damage that you take and gear like that, it seems like it's an attempt to artificially lengthen the title, and 90% of the missions are literally just drive to a location and sit in a circle, or drive to a location and move a drone around, and then drive to a location. Which, yeah, in cooperative, that isn't very engaging. Like 4 people all going to one circle isn't great. It isn't fun. There's no end goal or a task to work toward, like you could in SnowRunner. As I said, as a single player thing, it's fine, because as a solo player, you go out and you're exploring the map, and you're going into the cave systems and stuff like that, and you're sort of navigating the locations that way, and you obviously have the ability to jump between different vehicles to overcome different tasks. Not tasks, challenges in the environment to like use a smaller vehicle to get to a location to place an anchor, and then that'll allow you bigger vehicles to get up and that kind of thing. That's okay. But yeah, in co-op, it's sadly not as fun. And it's a shame, because I've been waiting for a while for the cooperative update to come to Expeditions, but ultimately, yeah, decent single player, well worth it if you enjoyed Mudrunner and you enjoyed SnowRunner. Cooperative, keep an eye on it for now. See if they do any more updates that might tweak some aspects of co-op, and go from there. But yeah, that's really all I've got on Expeditions Mudrunner. Keep an eye out for, I guess, any other updates that they do for that game. And yeah, I mean, the next thing from Focus I'll probably do a review of will be Space Marine 2, which I'm really looking forward to. But until then, have a good one, everyone. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.